Have you ever just stopped and wondered how some of the smartest leaders out there can make decisions that turn into, well, absolute disasters? Here's the thing, it's usually not about a lack of intelligence. It's more like a trick of the mind. So today, we're going to dig into the psychology of what we're calling the leader's blind spot. Let's get right into it.
I mean, this is the big one, right? The ultimate high-stakes question. You see it play out in the news, you write about it in business case studies. Heck, maybe you've even seen it up close in your own workplace. Some brilliant leader makes a call that, looking back, just seems totally baffling. So what is going on inside their head that causes that disconnect? That's exactly what we're going to unpack. Okay, so here's our plan. First, we'll talk about what this leader's blind spot actually is. Then we'll look at the battle between rational thinking and how we think in the real world. After that, we'll get into 3 of the sneakiest mental traps leaders fall for. And finally, we'll cover the single best way to avoid them.
All right, first up, the leader's blind spot. And look, this isn't about some kind of character flaw. Think of it more like unseen forces, kind of like hidden currents that can pull the leader's decisions way off course without them even realizing it.
The truth is, no major decision is ever made in a total vacuum. I don't care if it's a multi-billion-dollar acquisition or just signing off on a key project, it's all getting filtered through that leader's internal psychology. You know, their past experiences, their secret assumptions, and, as we're about to see, their subconscious mental shortcuts.
So that brings us to our next big idea, this fundamental conflict that's always going on in our heads. It's this constant tug-of-war between the ideal, super logical way we think we make decisions and the messy, real-world way we actually do it. Okay, so on one hand, you've got this idea of pure rational thinking. This is the fantasy world, right? Where we have all the data we could ever need and unlimited time to find the absolute perfect solution. But then there's bounded rationality. And that's reality for pretty much all of us. We're dealing with tight deadlines, we're missing key information, and our brains, while amazing, are a long way from being perfect.
And this is really the key to the whole thing. We aren't computers. We can't process every single piece of information like some supercomputer. So our brains have evolved to use these handy little mental shortcuts, sometimes called heuristics. And honestly, they're incredibly useful. They help us make fast, pretty good judgments most of the time. But, and this is a big but, they are also the source of our biggest, most dangerous blind spots.
Which leads us perfectly to the, let's call them the villains of our story today. Because when these normally useful shortcuts go wrong, they tend to go wrong in really predictable ways. And this creates what psychologists call cognitive biases.
Now, the key word in that definition is systematic. These aren't just random one-off mistakes. You should think of them more like predictable glitches in our mental software that affect every single one of us. They quietly warp our perception of reality, and they can lead to some seriously flawed judgments.
So for this explainer, we're going to zoom in on 3 of the most common and most powerful of these traps: the overconfidence trap, the confirmation trap, and the anchoring trap. Let's break down exactly how each one messes with our heads.
First up is the overconfidence trap. This is our natural tendency to believe we're more correct than we actually are. You see this all the time. A leader has a string of successes, and pretty soon they start trusting their gut more than the actual data. They might start dismissing warnings from their team because they just feel like they're right. That right there is overconfidence in action. Next, we have the confirmation bias. And man, this one is sneaky. See, our brains just love being right. So what do? We subconsciously go on this little hunt for any piece of information that supports what we already believe, while conveniently ignoring any data that contradicts it. It's like building a personal echo chamber inside your own head.
And finally, there's the anchoring bias. This is what happens when our minds get stuck on the very first piece of information we hear. So, for example, that first sales number mentioned in a meeting, even if it's just a wild guess, often becomes the anchor that the entire rest of the discussion revolves around. It can totally skew the conversation from the very beginning.
Now, after hearing about all these mental traps, it's pretty easy to feel a little discouraged, right? But here's the good news. We're going to pivot now from the problem to the solution. And it all starts with something that's surprisingly simple.
Okay, listen up, because this is probably the most important thing you'll hear today. You can't just eliminate these biases. You can't. They are hardwired into how we think. But simply knowing that they exist, that's like turning on the lights in a dark room. All of a sudden, you can see the obstacles and you can start to navigate around them. This awareness is a genuine leadership superpower. And look, this isn't just some feel-good, abstract idea. There is a real-world payoff here. When leaders and their teams are aware of these biases, it actually drives better performance. It helps create a culture of accountability where it's okay, even encouraged, to challenge assumptions. And ultimately, it makes sure that everyone is aligned based on solid logic, not just these hidden mental shortcuts.
So, as we start to wrap this up, the big idea is this. The foundation of really sound judgment and great leadership isn't just about having the best data or the highest IQ. It really begins with a bit of introspection, with understanding the hidden psychological forces that are shaping every single choice you make.
And that leaves us with one final thought to take with you. As you go about your week, just be honest with yourself for a second. Of the 3 traps we just talked about, overconfidence, confirmation, and anchoring, which one tends to catch you most often? Just thinking about that, just knowing the answer, is the first and most powerful step you can take toward making better decisions.